Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now let the stories begin. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Celebration of You. And, as always, I get so excited about the guests, and there's always a story, right? And most of the time, there's somebody that I meet or I've gotten to know that impacted my life, and then I get to celebrate them and share them with you. So I'm so excited for the guest you're about to hear today, and you'll soon know how we met. Before I dive into this podcast, and I hope that every person, and by the way, shout out to all the listeners. I just found out that we are in now over 100 countries, and it's because of you, the listeners, that make this show exist, and because stories of hope and inspiration give you something, whether it's inspiration to make a difference in your life, or maybe it's a connection to someone across the world that can change your life. And so before I dive into our guest today, I just found out 1 hour before setting up to record this beautiful woman you're going to get to hear from. And I just found out about an amazing guest I had on the show. For many of you, if you're new to the Celebration of You, you would not know, but I'm going to ask you to go listen to this amazing interview that was 2 years ago. Her name is Darcy, and she was one of the most inspiring people to me because she took her health into her own hands. This woman is brilliant, holds a couple doctorates. She's a professor in education, and she, for 7 years, fought and fought and fought to find out what was wrong with her health. It took her 7 years to get the correct diagnosis after many missed ones, and ended up that it was a very rare form of blood cancer. And because of the battle for that, she really has inspired people around the world to own your health. Don't rely on doctors. Everybody's human. We're there for a reason, but own your health. She continued to bring a global awareness to this very, very rare form of blood cancer. And after she was a guest on the show, and I'm sharing this story because, again, it's so dear to my heart and why the show exists. Within 2 weeks of her sharing her story on the show 2 years ago, a family in Russia was listening to the podcast and had been going through years of not finding the answer and to what was battling. A child of theirs had a very rare disease. Because of Darcy, this family was able to reach out to her in Pennsylvania, get in touch with these doctors, and their child was finally diagnosed and was getting the treatment that is so rare and hard to find. Her story changed their lives. And so today I'm doing a celebration and a tribute to this amazing woman who has lost her fight with cancer and is no longer with us. But she gave us all around the world an inspiration to own your health, fight for what you believe in. And in her hours and her days, even battling through severe chemo and radiation, and she was horribly sick, she never stopped saying, I want to bring awareness to this. So Darcy, I dedicate this next guest who's incredible and amazing, and we're going to have so much fun. And I dedicate this show to you, my love, and to your family for sharing this journey with us and bringing other people along and giving them hope. So I just had to take a moment and share this. And I thank you all for listening. And now get ready for this incredible woman who I met, I think we're going on almost 3 or 4 years ago. And we'll tell you the story of how we met. But here she is, the beautiful, the amazing, and the gorgeous and talented Simone Sequeira. Hi, my love.
Hello, Holly. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I thank you for allowing me to take a moment to celebrate this beautiful woman who's touched our lives, Darcy. So thank you for that. Oh, well, girlfriend, I know. Where do we start? We got to go back to when we met. And I'll preface this for a minute because you'll soon know what Simone does, which to me is like amazing in this world. But Simone, go back. Was that 3 or 4 years ago that I was speaking at that event?
I think it was 3 years ago.
Okay. And it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was hired to be a keynote speaker for an event for the first ever Women of the Vine, women around the world in the winemaking industry, correct?
That's right.
Oh, yes. And you were there.
I was there.
And what's great about that moment was I'm one of the only two people there speaking over the couple days that's not in the wine industry. But I did have some fun sharing that my husband and I have become complete wine freaks, right? We're so love it.
Yes, yes.
And one of my favorite wines and what, we became club members and I gave a shout out just so happened to be a winery that you're the winemaker for. So then we
That's
got to
right.
connect, right? Afterwards. So tell us from your perspective, how did that moment go? What was that like for you? Like, do you remember me doing a shout out for you guys?
I do. And I actually, when you did your shout out, I was transported to a few years prior to that. I think that we actually met before Women of the Vine. I think that you and I met at the Duna Vineyard at a candlelight dinner at that vineyard that we hosted for our wine club members. And I do believe you and your husband were in attendance. Do you recall
my
that?
gosh. Wait a minute. Girlfriend, I'm covered with goosebumps and my eyes are closed because that was one of the most magical wine events we've ever been to. And now I'm remembering, you're right. We met you then because Greg, right?
Yes.
And can I tell you though, yes, now I'm remembering this. Here we reconnected at Women of the Vine.
That's right.
That night, we're under the stars, literally where you guys were doing this amazing, surreal event. We were almost above the cloud line from where we were sitting.
Yep.
In the vineyard. And the candlelight, this long, giant table up on this mountaintop in the vineyard. And Simone, I have to tell you, Steve and I, when they sat us down and we saw our nameplate, right where we were sitting, we're like, oh, we have the best seats of this entire experience. And we grabbed somebody, and I don't think it was you, it was somebody else, because you're the winemaker. And I remember we did a toast, and we got to ask questions. But we looked at the gal that was running the wine club, and we said, how did we get such great seats? And she looked at us, Simone, and said, are you not aware? And we're like, what are you saying? She goes, you are our very first inaugural wine club members.
That's right. That is right. Yes. Wow.
I can't even believe we're having this moment because I remember that like it was yesterday, Simone.
Yes, it was not yesterday, but.
Yeah. Have never felt so special in my whole life. And so by the way, you created and are the winemaker for what continues to be my number one most favorite. And this is why I'm so excited to have you on the show. You make my two favorite wines that exist are Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And you make, my love, the two best I've ever had in my whole life.
Oh, thank you. That is an honor. That is an honor.
So tell us about, now that I've just bragged about you, and now we all know that this is what you do, will you give us the journey? Because there's not a lot of female women winemakers. Tell us how long you've been doing this. I want to know all about you. So.
Okay. Well, and you're right. There are not a lot of female winemakers. It may seem to some that there are, but in fact, there are 4,000 California wineries, and of those 4,000, only 10% of them have female winemakers at the helm.
Wow. I didn't realize it was that low.
It's that low, and that's about to change. So as we speak, there are 62% of UC Davis graduates that will graduate in the spring who are either in viticulture or enology programs. So there's a big female wave coming in the industry, and I am so excited to kind of be out in front of it. So yes, it's I think that in the moment that we have a real interest in seeing what female winemakers, and let's face it, females in a lot of different creative roles can do. So it's an exciting time to be in the wine industry.
Oh my gosh, and kudos. And you're at the forefront of this because this is not new to you. You've been in the winemaking industry for quite a long time. So
I kind of tripped into it.
Oh, good. I want to hear the story. Okay, take us back because you've been in this for a while and you're one of the, if you think about it, I mean, I'm getting goosies as I say this, but you're kind of leading the pack and leading the wave. Yes, I love knowing the percentage. 62% are going to be graduating as females in this industry. But let's face it, girlfriend, you go back to when you started in this, there was not even a handful. And we're talking, I can't even imagine what the percentage is globally, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I never thought I would do this. Never saw myself in a field like this. And actually, I'm someone that hasn't had a lot of future vision for myself, which hopefully I'll get to say a little bit more about that later. But I moved to Sonoma County in 1997. And it was very clear to me from the get-go that the most interesting people here in Sonoma County, they all work with wine.
Yep.
That was very clear. And I started to develop friendships with people in our industry. And one person actually saw a potential in me and said, if you were interested, I would help you secure an internship in Burgundy.
Oh,
Wow.
what?
Yes. And I thought, well, gosh, it would be pretty silly to let that opportunity go. So I said, yeah, sure. Okay, I'm not sure what that would entail, but that sounds really amazing. And through a series of fortuitous events, I ended up working the 2002 vintage in Burgundy, and it was actually a great year in that region. Those wines ended up being fantastic, great vintage in Burgundy. And I'm not sure I'd ever try it again, but I in order to take on that internship, I borrowed my French friend's identity.
Oh, wait, this is a good story. This is getting better by the minute.
Papers were not in order, Holly. I just thought I'm gonna get this by hook or by crook. And a French friend said, you know what? They're never gonna give you, the permit you need at this point. You're pretty late in coming to the table here, but why don't you just pose as me, Clémence Donjon, and they'll just, at the end of the harvest, they'll write the check to me and I'll cash it for you. And I said, just problem solved, Clémence. Thank you very much. So yes, so the entire harvest, they would do roll call in the morning, and it was Clémence Donjon, and I'd say oui, and everyone called me Clémence, and it was a great experience. I did a lot of picking. Which is not something that we see. Typically, interns do not pick grapes here in California. That is, that's work that seems to be reserved for crews that are dedicated to picking, but not so in France. People who pick grapes in France are all shapes and sizes. Some are kids taking a gap year. Others are professional pickers that go all around the country. They begin in Champagne and then go into Burgundy, down into the Rhone and the south of France, and they end the harvest in Normandy and Brittany picking apples.
Wow.
So in that one little vintage, I got a chance to meet a lot of really interesting people. I did get into the cellar on the weekends and do some cellar work too. So overall, it was a great experience, and I did get a little check in the end, and Clémence did cash it for me. So.
I love this story. It just goes to prove, if you've got a passion and the gift, it's amazing how the world and serendipitous moments will come together, my love.
So true. So true.
Oh my gosh. Okay, before you take us from there, I just have to tell you, okay, I've never been to Burgundy. It's a dream. Just tell me, is it something I need to just push the envelope with Steve and say, we're planning this, and when would be the best time? I'm totally derailing our interview because I don't want to forget this question.
No, I think you ought to. It's really unlike any other wine growing region in the world, and it's worth seeing. I think I know how much you love Sonoma County, and I think that the scale of Burgundy would really appeal to you. It's not everything there is quite small and so intimate. Not just the vineyards, but the cellars that you go into, and those people who host you. It's just an amazing, for the world-class reputation that Burgundy has. There's still such a beautiful intimacy and smallness to it. I know you would love it.
Okay, and I never imagined that. The fact that you just said it so intimate and small, that just made me even more excited, because you don't picture it to be that way. You almost picture it to be a monstrosity. And actually, Simone, where we love to come is we've fallen in love with Healdsburg. Because of that, the hand boutique crafted, right? Wines that you can't get everywhere else. And you get to meet the winemakers like you. And just to us, it's just, I know we should just do a whole show on just winemaking. Maybe that's my next life. I'll just come follow you around.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So take us from, you leave the internship, you get the check.
Yes.
And now you're back, right?
Yeah, I did a little traveling afterwards. I came back, and I somehow wasn't convinced that I needed to throw all my eggs into the winemaking basket. And I regret at this point not just diving back into it once I got home. I feel like my passion was there. I got to admit something to you, Holly.
Yeah, do it.
For a long time, I was a person with very little drive. And when I listened I listened to your podcast, and all your guests, they have this one thing in common, and that is that they have this amazing drive. There's an engine purring inside of all of the people that you speak to that propels them further and further into their own adventures. And I've been listening, and I'm so in awe, and I can't help but think, gosh, that's not me at all. What am I going to talk about?
Oh no. And if you only knew, so you're looking through it through a different lens, right? You have done and become this amazing person doing what you love. And how many people probably are thinking the same thing you just said, like, oh, I don't have that drive. Or maybe I'm just in a bad place in my life, right? Or maybe I'm feeling like I'm living under a black cloud.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm not there now. My drive, or at least my recognition of my drive, because I think what was probably happening for me is that I did have a drive. I just wasn't recognizing it. And it took a really long time. In fact, that night that we sat together under the stars at that candlelight dinner at the Duna Vineyard, I don't think I had fully turned the key in the ignition of my own drive then. Not even then. I've made a pivot in my life. But it took a long time to get there. I guess I'm a late bloomer.
Well, you know what? It's never too late to dream. It's never too late to bloom. So this is fascinating. So when you think about even going back to that day, and you said I hadn't really had the pivot yet. Okay, first of all, tell us about that monumental, whatever that time was that was the pivot for you, and what do you think was holding you back? I think a lot of people, as we get older, I'll be honest with you, Simone, I know a lot of people, and a lot of guests I've had on the show have admitted it, that, you kind of give up on your dreams, or you feel like it's too late.
Yeah.
Right? What was yours?
Something dimmed for me way, way, way back. So when I was 9, my father, also someone with a lot of drive and a lot of passion, he lost his battle to cancer.
Oh.
And he was diagnosed, and he died within a 3-month time period.
Really?
Yes. And at 9 years old, I was in love with my father. I had an amazing relationship with him, as many young girls have with their father. I'm an only child, and we had this beautiful 3-way talk about intimate. I mean, there's just something about two parents and one child, that triangle of closeness. And we had that. And then all of a sudden he got sick, and then he was sick over Christmas, and he passed the first week of January. It was just a roller coaster, and it was over so quickly. And I think that in what probably would have been my last years of girlhood anyway, I found that I was propelled into an emotional arena a couple of years too early. And I had been a creative child. I loved to sing, to dance. I loved drama. I was a very exuberant child. And when my father died, I felt the heaviness of an adult world. And I think I really feel that came way too soon for me.
Yeah. It's like you lost, this sounds very profound what I'm going to say, but just listening to you, it's like your childhood was taken away and you went into a very dark place because you didn't even have enough time to celebrate him and spend time with him. I mean, I can't believe 3 months and it was over.
Yeah.
That's fast.
It's so fast.
Yeah. And probably unbeknownst to you, you fell into a depression that you weren't even consciously aware of. Would you say that began probably back then?
Yes, absolutely. And it just, as I say, you're 9 and you're I think you're entering that prepubescence, and I think that loss and my own transition out of childhood, I think it I don't want to say it derailed me, that would be overstating it, but it certainly twisted my path and my own personal perspective. And I would say I battled depression on and off for the 15 years that followed. I mean, it was very intense for me, and for my mother too, who wasn't sure how to help. And it's hard to pluck apart just normal adolescent moodiness.
Yeah, right.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
From clinical depression. And I often wonder what my young adulthood would have been like had my father not passed away.
Mm-hmm. And was your mother like in her own world of, and I mean, I'm just going there because it's so top of mind, but in her own world of depression? So she's not only dealing with her own loss, but then trying to figure out how to help you. And it's hard enough. You're right. To have to discern the hormones of puberty and at the same time, right? Just all that, right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And then becoming a single mother overnight. Yeah. No, I now have tremendous respect and admiration for my mother carrying us through that event and staying strong for me and doing what she could to help me. But I do, at the same time, I wonder what my life would be like if my father had not died when I was a child. But I also have come to realize that it's not who I am, but it definitely shaped me. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't, as you and your listeners probably know, you never stop missing someone, and you
right.
You mourn someone, and you go on for the rest of your life mourning someone who was as close to you as my father was to me. But through that process, I do feel like I was especially as a young adult, a person with a heightened sense of emotion.
Mm. Well, you're an empath, my love. You are a person that has high sensory acuity. You're very in tune to people around you, whether you realize that or not. The minute I met you, and then I've continued to see you and just saw you again, right, this last fall. And
Yes.
It's like you have that gift, and there's a spirit about you that just like glows. So people are drawn to you, and probably for you, not even understanding what that was. And all those years of you felt it more than some people would feel it. Not to say that everybody doesn't feel loss, right? But that was a big deal for you because of the highly empathic person you are. And you know what's interesting, Simone? I see that a lot with people that battle depression, because usually it's people that have a very high sensory acuity. They're so in touch with emotions as to why it becomes this vicious cycle. And, it's fascinating. I wish, I don't know, I think you'd be amazing for this. I'm on a mission and a path right now to help bring awareness to mental health, because isn't it interesting how we have no problem seeking help and talking about, like, when somebody gets cancer, or we have diabetes, or we have Lyme disease, or now we talk about what's a fibromyalgia, right? And yet, like 1 in 4 people in every family, there's mental illness, right? I mean, it's everywhere, but we just shove it under the carpet. We're not talking about it. And it's just as much of something that the more we talk about, the more we can get help and we can hear from other people. So I'm fascinated with, you're doing and living your dream. You're so gifted at what you do. And you said to me, you don't even know if you were in that pivot yet when I first met you. What would you... I mean, and I don't even know that there's a moment, but what would you say was your turning point that you finally got vision, and whether you got drive or not, you realize you're gifted?
Yeah, well, okay, so I finally pivoted away from my own depression shortly after I had moved to Sonoma County, and that was my first and perhaps my most important life pivot. And I was, like many people who suffer from depression, I was not taking care of myself physically. But I was a hard worker. I'd always, show up to work and do my best. And at that time, I was working at a very cute little cafe here in Sonoma County in Santa Rosa. And I had a daily customer who came in every morning, and I would prepare his breakfast, and we'd have a little chat. And I felt I could trust him. And I learned that he was an acupuncturist. And so one day I just decided I'm gonna lay it out on the line and talk to him about my depression and see if he has some advice for me. And this beautiful man who ended up being a real savior for me listened to all I had to tell him that morning, and he said, when you get off of work, I want you to come to my office, and I will tell you and show you what I do, my practice. And if it's something that interests you, I would be happy to treat you. And he was also a specialist in Chinese herbs. And he said, I don't want you to not come because of the cost of the treatment. I don't have any expectation of you paying for your treatment. I want to do this for you. And so this man treated me, and his staff treated me for the next 2 months. And he essentially nursed me back to health. If I had a picture of myself the morning that I talked to Cal and the morning I left his office 2 months later, I don't think, Holly, you would recognize the person who I had been before.
Oh my goodness. I've heard a lot about acupuncture, but never knew that it helps with even depression and just all of that. I always think about it for healing, like physical pain. People will say, go get acupuncture, right?
Right. But
Simone.
But I think that, and his name, I want to say it because he's such a special person. Cal Seabird he understood, I think he understood that if he taught me something about taking care of myself and tuning into my physical self, that I would start to rebuild a lot of the self-respect that I had lost in my battle with depression. He wasn't just treating my body, he was showing me how to care for myself and my own health. And I think that made all the difference.
Does he still have a business? Is he still in business?
No, he is retired now.
Oh, Cal, we'd get him a lot of business right now.
I know. But he was someone that he made himself available to me. He wanted to hear from me, not just treat me. And it's so rare that someone just walks into your life, say, here, I'll help you. For no other reason than I want to help you. And that's what he did for me. So he was the person that showed me I could be healthy and I could be my own agent and look after my own mental health. That was the biggest pivot for me. And I was 22. And
wow.
So I feel like I got a new lease on life. The second pivot didn't really come for me until much, much later. And I found myself in this wonderful job, again being mentored by an amazing man who you know, Greg LaFollette.
Oh, yes.
He's a founding winemaker for La Follette Wines, and he too saw something in me. I had some wine experience. I did have both in France, which we talked about, and then I did another foreign harvest in Argentina. So I had a little experience in my belt. I had worked at a couple wineries here in Sonoma County, but Greg saw something in me that others did not. He brought me on board, and I began this wonderful journey with La Follette Wines. It wasn't until I had a baby and I came back and took my maternity leave, all the while worrying, like, what's it going to be like when I come back? You know, am I even going to want to come back? Am I crazy? It is a demanding, like physical, demanding job. It's long. It can be long hours at harvest. Like, am I going to be able to have it all?
I love that you said it like that.
Or am I going to go crazy and quit? And again, Greg said, no, you got to come back. You've got to come back because he really encouraged me, saying, Simone, your experience as a mother, as a new mother, is not going to take away from what you're doing with the winemaking. It's going to actually enhance it.
Oh, so
and then
true.
And then I saw that play out. So my second pivot was becoming a working mother, and I know all mothers are working mothers. Don't get me wrong. I understand that.
Yep.
I get that. But coming back to my job and doing it while, raising a child, I do feel like, wow, this is the confidence, knowing that I can do this. I can do the juggle. I don't always get it right, and I do mess up like like you're bound to do. But it's given me this amazing self-confidence to raise a child and to continue to advance my career.
Oh, and as I'm listening to you, and Greg that's how we met you. When I will never forget meeting him, he had just left Cake Bread. He was a winemaker, right? And he was starting he was brand new, just starting this company. And that's how we fell in love with you and the wine. And yet, Simone, I'm having a moment, because if you think about these two pivotal moments in your life, okay, I'm kind of getting goosies. If you believe in God and angels, both were men that saw something in you and believed in you and gave you the gift of taking care of you and bringing your gifts to this world. And it's like you wonder, was your father nudging? It's your father nudging, because it's men. Have you noticed that?
Yes. And I can't help but wonder if my father had stayed in my life, would he have guided me the same way? I feel like my heart remained open. even though I went through a very dark time and had a lot of ups and downs in my young adulthood, I feel like I kept my heart open, and that allowed me to receive the guidance from both Cal and from Greg.
It's amazing. Both men and both pivotal in helping you take care of you. And oh my gosh, I could spend forever. We haven't even talked about the wine industry, by the way. I think that's hilarious. And that's kind of fun because I've just bragged about how amazing you are. So we're going to have to tell people how they can get a hold of your wine and all that here in just a minute. Okay. I'm more intrigued with knowing this journey you've been through. And thank you for being just so authentic and transparent and pulling back the layers of the onion. And just share with listeners, like today, the person you are today. And I typically would say, what advice would you give to your 25-year-old self? And I'd love to know that. I also would like to know, knowing who you are today, what advice would you give that young 20-year-old self? I also would like to know, what do you do on a daily basis or on a regular basis to keep taking care of yourself?
I was hoping you would ask me that.
Oh, good. Oh, yay.
I know you have a quadrant, right?
Yes.
You have a quadrant that you look at for your own fulfillment. And mine is so similar to yours. So you talk about the mental and the physical, the emotional and the spiritual. And mine is so similar. Instead of emotional, I really need to feed myself with sensory every day, whether it is tasting through the wines in the barrels or going out and taking some beautiful photos of the vineyards. I need to have a sensory piece in my life every day. It's something I smell, it's something I taste, it's some visual beauty that I enjoy, but that is an essential part of me staying grounded and staying connected to my creative self.
Oh, you just gave me goosebumps because that quadrant is absolutely what gave me my life back and owning my time and my world, right? So for you to say the same thing, and I just wrote down, I did a little quadrant to write yours down because I was like, I love that. And I have to say I'm so intrigued that you also love to go mushroom hunting.
Oh, yes.
Wait, what is that? Tell me a little bit before we end this. I got to know about the mushroom hunting along with the wine making.
Yes. So it's kind of a lesser known treasure of our region, and that is wild mushrooms, many of which you would never want to pick, but are still interesting to identify. But we have a whole array of edible wild mushrooms that grow in our coastal region in Sonoma County and Mendocino County. Now, I will credit my husband here, who is the die-hard. He'll go out and he'll spend 12 hours crawling around the woods. I don't have that kind of endurance, but I love doing it. I love doing it alone and mushroom hunting with Paul. But there's something, it's this crossroads of being out in the woods and enjoying just the solace of being in nature, and the Easter egg hunt of actually finding amazing edible gourmet mushrooms growing wild. It's the next time you're up here.
Yes.
If you want to come after harvest, but come in October, November, we can spend 12 hours in the coastal forest. Chanterelles and porcinis, we've got it all.
Okay, that's it. I am literally inviting myself. You just put it out there. So, Stevie and I spend a lot of time up there because we love it. We kind of want to find another little place it's like a second home. But I will tell you, girlfriend, I'm totally taking you up on that. And you know what? You should hear your voice as you were talking about this. And anybody listening can it makes you want to go eat a mushroom. You just talked about it with the most amazing, like the sensory was coming straight through the phone. I'm like I'm getting really hungry. Now I want to go get mushrooms and all I can get is at the grocery store. Oh, you are such a gift. I mean, I've loved you from the moment we met and every time we see each other. But Simone, thank you for being with me in this moment and today, and being that we haven't really talked about wine. And I just bragged to everybody that you truly are one of the top winemakers that makes the most amazing wines that I love. Will you tell people if they want to reach out to you, and of course, reach out to you to ask more questions, to learn about your wine, to buy wine? Can you tell everybody how to get in touch with you?
Yes. So first, look at the La Follette Wines website, because we have some gorgeous photography of not just vineyards, but our whole Sonoma County region, some beautiful visuals there, and some good descriptions of the wines too. So as you mentioned, it's Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and that website is LaFolletteWines.com, and maybe you can put, I don't know if maybe you can put it in the text that accompanies the podcast. Okay. Yes. And then, but if you want to chat about wines or mushrooms or depression or Burgundy or whatever, you can email me directly. Please email me at Simone@LaFolletteWines.com.
And I love that you just said, if you want to chat about wines or mushrooms or depression, right?
Right. I'd be happy to connect on all of those things.
But you know what? You just summed up without even, oh man, I'm having another aha. If you think about it, for everyone out there, human beings, we're not perfect. You don't have to, I always say you don't have to be perfect to be priceless. We're all broken. We all have our stuff. It's the stuff that makes us, I say, rich in character, rich in who we choose to be in this world and how we choose to serve the world. And Simone, you have given yourself permission to take care of yourself, and you have continued. Look at how your gifts have just elevated and bringing joy to the world, like through your art. And truly, winemaking is art, and as to why the creative side of you, right, is probably having a heyday. And you're bringing us joy because, and I'm not kidding you, everybody, this is truly my favorite Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Like, I am passionate about this. There's a lot of great wines out there, and I'm members of several. And just to have you and to experience you, and one of my really good friends, Simone, if you don't know her, I want to make sure you meet her. She's actually going to be on the show in January. Do you know Ellie, who owns 11 and 11 Wines in Napa?
No, I don't.
You need to. I'm going to introduce you to.
Okay.
Yeah. She's not a winemaker. She's an owner. She left the corporate world to follow her passion and start a winery. And she brings the business side of it. As you know, there's not a lot of business people in the wine country. Everybody's either the scientist or the winemaker, the artist, right?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And she's beautiful and amazing. Oh, you two will become best friends. So I can't believe I'm talking about this on the show, but I'm going to introduce you. So now I told everybody this.
That's wonderful. Well, I want to invite you and your husband and all of your listeners to come to La Follette Wines, and I will personally host a wine tasting for any and all of you. It would be my pleasure.
Oh, you don't realize what's about to happen. All of a sudden you're going to go, Holly, somebody's coming in from Russia and from Australia. And I think we have people coming in from Europe, and they've said they heard the show. Oh, well, it's all wonderful. Well, I can't wait to see you. We're going to try to get out there in February, but we haven't picked the dates yet. So stay tuned, my love. Okay?
Great.
Thank you. Thank you for the gift of you and just being you. And I feel like you're in my life forever. So thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Bye for now.
Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag #YourStoryMatters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.